From dinosaur roars stolen from vintage monster movies to a stunt driver who nearly plunged to his death, the rusty Peterbilt truck that terrorized Dennis Weaver in Steven Spielberg's 1971 thriller has stories as bizarre as the film itself. This menacing 18-wheeler became cinema's first truly terrifying vehicle villain. But behind its grimy exterior lurks a collection of production secrets, accidental cameos, and Hollywood recycling scandals that rival any horror story. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Duel's 1955 Peterbilt 281 terror truck. Fact 1. Spielberg held truck auditions, choosing evil by its face. When Steven Spielberg set out to make Duel in 1971, he faced an unusual casting challenge. The villain of his film would not be a human actor, but a truck, and Spielberg took the selection process just as seriously as he would for any leading role. He arranged what he called an audition, bringing 7 different semi-trucks to the Universal backlot for inspection. Each truck was evaluated not for its mechanical capabilities, but for its appearance and personality. Spielberg walked around each vehicle, studying it from multiple angles, looking for one that possessed an inherently menacing quality. He ultimately chose a 1955 Peterbilt 281, rejecting the more modern flat-nosed, cab-over-engine style trucks that were common at the time. The reason for his choice was simple but brilliant. The older Peterbilt had what Spielberg described as a face. Its long hood resembled a nose jutting forward. The split windshield created the illusion of 2 separate eyes staring at the viewer. The round headlights enhanced this effect, giving the truck an almost living presence. Even the overall proportions of the vehicle contributed to its threatening appearance. Spielberg understood that for the audience to feel genuine terror from a vehicle, they needed to see it as something alive and malevolent rather than just a machine. By selecting a truck that naturally possessed facial features, he gave his villain a personality before a single frame was even filmed. This casting decision would prove crucial to the film's success, transforming an ordinary semi-truck into one of cinema's most memorable antagonists. Fact 2. The crew made it progressively uglier for every shot. The Peterbilt truck that Spielberg selected already had a menacing appearance, but the young director was not satisfied with just its natural look. He wanted the truck to feel diseased, decaying, and utterly repulsive. To achieve this effect, Spielberg assigned multiple crew members a very specific and unusual job. For each shot throughout the production, these crew members were tasked with making the truck progressively uglier and more disgusting. This was not a one-time effort, but an ongoing process that continued throughout the entire 11-day shoot. The crew applied layers of oil and grease to the truck's exterior, giving it a slimy, unwashed appearance that suggested years of neglect. They splattered fake dead insects across the windshield and grille, creating the impression that this vehicle had been plowing through the desert roads for countless miles without ever being cleaned. Various other blemishes were added, including dirt streaks, rust stains, and general grime that accumulated shot after shot. The goal was to make the truck look like something that had crawled out of the earth itself, a rolling piece of decay that had no business being on a public highway. This attention to detail paid off significantly. In the finished film, the truck does not just look old or worn. It looks genuinely repulsive and unnatural, almost as if it were a living organism covered in its own filth. The progressive dirtying technique meant that the truck became more visually disturbing as the film went on, subtly increasing the sense of threat and disgust that audiences felt every time it appeared on screen. Fact 3. The license plates were meant to suggest serial killing. One of the most unsettling details about the truck in Duel is a detail that many viewers notice but might not fully understand. Mounted on the front bumper of the Peterbilt are multiple license plates from different states, including Wyoming, Nevada, Idaho, Arizona, Montana, and New Mexico. At first glance, this might seem like a practical detail. Interstate truckers in that era often needed to display registration plates for each state they operated in. However, Spielberg had a much darker intention for this detail. He later explained that the multiple license plates were meant to subtly suggest that the truck driver was a serial killer. In Spielberg's vision, each plate represented a vehicle from a previous victim, someone the truck driver had already run off the road or forced over a cliff in another state. The director compared these plates to notches carved into the handle of a gunfighter's Colt 45, each one marking another kill. This sinister interpretation adds an entirely new layer of horror to the film. David Mann is not just being harassed by a random psychopath having a bad day. He is being hunted by someone who has done this before, potentially many times, and who keeps trophies from each murderous encounter. The genius of this detail is that it works on multiple levels. Viewers who accept the plates as normal truck registration simply see a working vehicle. But those who notice the variety of states and think deeper realize they are looking at evidence of previous crimes displayed in plain sight. A serial killer so confident that he advertises his murders on his front bumper without fear of consequences. Fact 4. The stunt driver nearly died when safety equipment failed. The climactic scene of Duel required the massive Peterbilt truck to plunge off a cliff and crash into the canyon below. This was an incredibly dangerous stunt that needed to be executed with precision. Stunt driver Carrie Lofton, a 50-year-old veteran with decades of experience, was behind the wheel for this critical moment. The plan was for Lofton to drive the truck toward the cliff edge at high speed, then bail out at the last possible moment while the truck continued forward and over the edge. To make this work safely, the crew rigged a dead man's handle, a fail-safe device that was strapped back to keep the truck accelerating even after Lofton jumped clear. In theory, this would allow Lofton to exit the vehicle with plenty of distance remaining before the cliff. But during the actual take, everything went catastrophically wrong. The safety strap that held the dead man's handle suddenly snapped. Without that mechanism, the truck would stop accelerating the moment Lofton let go of the controls. This meant he had to stay in the driver's seat far longer than planned, piloting the massive vehicle directly toward the precipice. Lofton made a split-second decision to commit to the stunt rather than abort. He drove the truck nearly to the very edge of the cliff before finally leaping from the cab at the last possible instant. His late exit left no time to close the driver's side door behind him. In the finished film, viewers can clearly see the truck's door hanging wide open as the vehicle tumbles through the air. This unplanned detail actually sparked speculation among some viewers that the truck driver had survived and escaped, though Lofton confirmed he simply had no time to close the door. Fact 5. Only one truck was used for the original TV filming. When Duel was produced as a television movie in 1971, the production operated on an extremely tight budget and schedule. The entire film was shot in just 11 days, which was already a compressed timeline for any production. Making matters even more challenging, the production team had access to only one truck for the original filming. This was the 1955 or 1957 Peterbilt 281 that Spielberg had selected during his truck auditions. Having just a single vehicle placed enormous pressure on everyone involved, but especially on stunt coordinator and driver Carrie Lofton. The climactic scene where the truck goes over the cliff and crashes into the canyon below could only be filmed once. There would be no second takes, no backup shots, no safety net whatsoever. If anything went wrong with the stunt, if the truck did not fall correctly, or if the cameras failed to capture the moment properly, the entire production would be left without its crucial final scene. There was no budget to acquire another truck and no time in the schedule to reshoot. The pressure was so intense that Spielberg set up 7 different cameras positioned at multiple angles along the cliff to ensure that at least some of them would capture usable footage. When the moment finally came and Lofton drove the truck over the edge, it had to work perfectly on the first and only attempt. Fortunately, despite the mechanical failure of the safety equipment that nearly killed Lofton, the cameras captured the stunt successfully. The destroyed truck tumbled into the canyon, and the production wrapped on schedule. Only later, when Universal decided to expand the film for theatrical release, did additional trucks become necessary. Fact 6. The backup truck became the sole survivor. During the original production of Duel, a crisis nearly derailed the entire shoot. The 1955 or 1957 Peterbilt 281 that Spielberg had selected started experiencing serious mechanical problems. The truck's cat engine began giving the production trouble during rehearsals, and the crew realized they might not be able to rely on it for the entire 11-day shoot. Faced with the very real possibility that their only truck might break down before filming was complete, the production team made the decision to build up a backup vehicle. They acquired a 1960 Peterbilt 281 and modified it to match the appearance of the original truck as closely as possible. This backup truck featured a different engine, a 262 horsepower Cummins instead of the Cat engine in the original. It also had a different transmission setup. Despite these mechanical differences, the backup truck was dressed and dirtied to look identical to the primary vehicle. As it turned out, the backup truck was taken off the production on the last day of filming, which meant the original truck was used for the climactic cliff scene and was destroyed. The backup truck, having never gone over the cliff, survived. Today, this 1960 Peterbilt 281 is the only remaining truck from the film. It is owned by Brad Wyke, a North Carolina truck collector who operates a trucking company and maintains a personal collection of classic vehicles. Wyke acquired the truck in 2009 and has carefully preserved it. He displays the surviving Duel truck at truck shows throughout the Southeast, often alongside a replica of the red Plymouth Valiant that Dennis Weaver drove in the film. Fact 7. The truck's death roar was stolen from a 1957 dinosaur movie. One of the most memorable moments in Duel comes at the very end when the truck plunges off the cliff. As the massive vehicle tumbles through the air toward its destruction, viewers hear an eerie, otherworldly sound. It is not the sound of metal grinding or an engine failing. Instead, it sounds like the death cry of some prehistoric beast, a long, distorted roar that gives the truck's demise an almost supernatural quality. This was not an accident or a happy coincidence. Spielberg deliberately chose this specific sound effect, and he borrowed it from an unlikely source. The roar came from a 1957 science fiction film called The Land Unknown, where it was used as the vocalization of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Spielberg stated in later interviews that he stole this sound from an old 1930s film, though the actual source was The Land Unknown from 1957. The director wanted to emphasize something supernatural about the truck and its driver, and the dinosaur roar accomplished this perfectly. The sound transformed the truck's death from a simple mechanical failure into something more primal and ominous. Spielberg loved this sound effect so much that he used it again 4 years later in his blockbuster film Jaws. When the great white shark finally dies and sinks to the bottom of the ocean, audiences hear the exact same roar. Spielberg later explained that using the same sound effect in both films was his way of demonstrating the kinship he felt between the two movies and was his method of thanking Duel for giving him his career. Interestingly, the 2004 DVD release of Duel removed the dinosaur roar from the remastered audio track, though viewers can select the original audio mix in the menu options. Fact 8. Spielberg accidentally appears reflected in a phone booth. Steven Spielberg was just 23 years old when he directed Duel, and while his talent was undeniable, his inexperience occasionally showed in small technical mistakes. One of these mistakes resulted in an unintentional cameo that went unnoticed until the film received its theatrical release. During the scene where David Mann stops at the Snake-Rama roadside attraction and uses an outdoor phone booth to call the police, Spielberg accidentally captured his own reflection in the phone booth glass. The young director can be clearly seen in the lower right-hand side of the glass panel wearing what appears to be a blue Hawaiian shirt or possibly a paisley patterned shirt. He is looking down at something in his hands, most likely the script or shooting notes. The reflection is brief but unmistakable once you know to look for it. Spielberg himself was unaware of this mistake until after the film's international theatrical release, when the expanded aspect ratio made the reflection more visible. During his appearance on Inside the Actors Studio, Spielberg admitted that this was not an intentional cameo, but rather a technical error. He went on to explain that when the film was converted for theatrical release, several similar mistakes were revealed. He counted 18 different occurrences where he or members of the crew were accidentally visible in reflections or shadows throughout the movie. These kinds of errors were much easier to miss on the small television screens that most viewers watched in 1971, but became obvious when projected on large theater screens. Despite being a mistake, the reflection has become a fun bit of trivia for fans who enjoy spotting the future legendary director in his own film. Fact 9. A pest control van features Spielberg, spelled backwards. Spielberg filled Duel with subtle details and inside jokes, and one of the cleverest appears during a moment of false hope for the protagonist. As David Mann desperately flees from the pursuing truck, he spots what appears to be a police car parked on the side of the road. Mann's spirits lift momentarily as he thinks salvation is at hand. He skids to a stop next to the vehicle, only to realize with crushing disappointment that it is not a police car at all. The black and white vehicle is actually a service car for a pest extermination company. The writing on the doors reads Grebleip's Pest Control. Viewers who take a moment to think about that unusual name will realize it is Spielberg, spelled backwards. This was the young director's way of leaving his signature on the film in a playful and unobtrusive manner. The choice of a pest control vehicle for this Easter egg is particularly fitting given the film's themes. The truck driver is certainly a pest that David Mann would desperately like to exterminate. Some film scholars have also noted that the name of the company adds another layer of dark humor to the scene. Mann is hoping for help from law enforcement to deal with the psychopathic trucker pursuing him, but instead he finds a reference to the film's director. It is as if Spielberg himself is reminding the audience that he is the one putting Mann through this ordeal and that no help will be coming from any authority figures. The Grebleip's detail is just one example of how Spielberg used the limited budget production as an opportunity to experiment with cinematic techniques and inject his personality into the frame. Fact 10. The truck's speed was achieved through camera trickery. Throughout Duel, the Peterbilt truck appears to be traveling at recklessly dangerous speeds, sometimes exceeding 90 miles per hour as it barrels down winding California desert roads in pursuit of David Mann's Plymouth Valiant. The illusion is so convincing that it creates genuine tension and fear for the safety of the characters. However, the reality of the filming was far less dangerous than it appears on screen. The truth is that the truck rarely exceeded 30 miles per hour during most of the chase sequences. Spielberg achieved the illusion of high-speed terror through clever camera techniques rather than actually putting his stunt drivers at extreme risk. The key to this deception was a specialized camera car that Spielberg borrowed from the production of the 1968 Steve McQueen thriller Bullitt. This camera vehicle was specially designed to capture low-angle shots of moving cars. Its most important feature was that it could position the camera lens just 6 inches off the ground. By placing the camera so close to the road surface, every movement appeared dramatically faster and more intense. When a truck traveling at 30 miles per hour passes just inches above a camera lens, it creates the visual impression of far greater speed. The low angle also emphasized the massive size of the Peterbilt, making it appear even more threatening and unstoppable. Spielberg combined these low-angle shots with careful editing and sound design to further enhance the sensation of speed. The result was a film that felt like a high-speed death race while actually being filmed at relatively safe and controlled speeds. This technique was pure filmmaking ingenuity, proving that a director's creativity and understanding of visual perception could be just as powerful as expensive stunts. Fact 11. Universal recycled Duel footage. Without permission. Enraging, Spielberg's 7 years after Duel made Steven Spielberg a rising star in Hollywood, he discovered that Universal Studios had done something that infuriated him. In 1978, the television series The Incredible Hulk aired an episode titled Never Give a Trucker an Even Break, and Spielberg was shocked to see that the show had incorporated extensive footage from his film. The episode was essentially built around recycled Duel material, using between 10 and 12 minutes of footage, including one 8-minute sequence that lifted approximately 218 individual cuts from the original film. Most egregiously, the episode used the entire climactic scene where the truck goes over the cliff. Universal Studios owned the rights to both Duel and The Incredible Hulk, so legally they were entitled to reuse the footage however they wanted. The creator of The Incredible Hulk, Ken Johnson, defended the decision by arguing that most of the audience would not remember a 7-year-old movie and that he was simply trying to save money and shooting time on a 6-day television production schedule. However, Spielberg and Duel producer George Eckstein felt betrayed by this cannibalization of their work. Eckstein stated that he was most upset because there are not too many things you do in television that you can take pride in, and seeing that work cut up and repurposed for another show felt like a violation. While Spielberg could not fight the footage usage on legal grounds, the incident led him to modify all of his future contracts with Universal. He insisted on adding clauses that specifically prohibited anyone from cannibalizing his films and regurgitating them into other shows. Spielberg reportedly said he would hate to see the mothership from Close Encounters land on Laverne and Shirley 5 years from now. Fact 12. The truck was modified to have the wrong horn sound. When Brad Wyke acquired the surviving backup truck from Duel in 2009, he took his role as caretaker of this piece of cinema history very seriously. Wyke, who runs a trucking company in North Carolina and maintains a large collection of classic trucks, wanted to ensure that when fans saw the Duel truck at shows and events, they experienced it as authentically as possible. This attention to detail extended even to elements that most people would never think about. One of the most distinctive audio signatures of the truck in the film is its air horn. Throughout Duel, the truck blasts its horn repeatedly, and the sound has a particular quality that fans of the film remember clearly. However, the backup truck that survived had a different horn that produced a slightly different sound than the one audiences heard in the movie. The original truck that went over the cliff had a horn that was likely damaged or bent in a specific way that gave it its unique tone. Rather than leave the surviving truck with its original horn sound, Wyke made a deliberate choice. He physically bent the horn on his truck to match the distinctive sound of the one that was destroyed in the filming. This modification means that when the truck appears at shows and Wyke demonstrates the horn for crowds, what they hear is as close as possible to what audiences heard in the original film. It is technically the wrong horn for this particular truck, but it is the right horn for the Duel experience. This kind of dedication to authenticity shows the level of respect that Wyke has for the film and for the fans who travel to see this historic vehicle. Fact 13. 3 different trucks were actually used across versions. While many fans believe that only 1 or possibly 2 trucks were used in making Duel, the truth is more complicated. A total of 3 different Peterbilt trucks appeared in various versions of the film, each serving a specific purpose in the production timeline. The first truck was the original 1955 or 1957 Peterbilt 281 that Spielberg selected during his casting auditions. This was the primary vehicle used throughout the initial television movie production, and it was the truck that was destroyed in the climactic cliff scene. The second truck was the 1960 Peterbilt 281 that was built as a backup when the original truck's Cat engine started having problems during rehearsals. This backup truck survived the production and is the vehicle now owned by Brad Wyke. When Universal decided to release Duel theatrically in international markets, the 74-minute television version needed to be expanded to 90 minutes. Spielberg spent 2 additional days filming new scenes, including the school bus sequence and the railroad crossing confrontation. For these new scenes, shot in April of 1972, a 3rd truck was brought in. This was a 1962 Peterbilt 351, again modified to match the appearance of the original as closely as possible. All 3 trucks were carefully dressed to look identical, with the same grimy exterior, the same multiple license plates on the front bumper, and the same general state of decay. The continuity was maintained so well that most viewers never notice they are actually watching different vehicles in different scenes. This use of multiple trucks showcases the resourcefulness of the production team and their commitment to visual consistency. Fact 14. The truck was treated like Godzilla during production. When Steven Spielberg approached Duel, he did not think of it as a simple thriller about road rage. Instead, he conceptualized the film in terms that were more commonly associated with monster movies. Spielberg explicitly stated that he approached the project in the manner of a Toho monster movie, referencing the Japanese studio famous for creating Godzilla and other giant creature features. In Spielberg's vision, he was replacing Godzilla with an 18-wheeler tanker truck. This monster movie approach fundamentally shaped how the film was made. Just as Godzilla was the true star of those Japanese films rather than the human characters trying to survive, Spielberg treated the Peterbilt truck as the film's main character and true antagonist. He gave the truck more screen time and more dramatic presence than any human actor in the cast. The camera lingered on the truck's details, showing its grimy surface, its menacing headlights, and its imposing bulk from every possible angle. Spielberg filmed the truck in ways that made it seem alive and conscious, capable of stalking and hunting like a predatory animal. The decision to keep the driver almost entirely hidden reinforced this monster movie quality. By showing only brief glimpses of an arm or a pair of boots, Spielberg ensured that the truck itself remained the focus of fear rather than the person controlling it. This approach was revolutionary for automotive thrillers and established a template that Spielberg would refine 4 years later with the shark in Jaws. Both the truck and the shark are treated as forces of nature, unstoppable and malevolent, hunting their human prey with single-minded determination. Fact 15. The surviving truck sat abandoned for 3 decades. After the production of Duel, wrapped in 1971, the backup Peterbilt 281 that had survived the filming faced an uncertain future. Unlike the destroyed primary truck, which met its dramatic end at the bottom of a canyon, this vehicle simply faded into obscurity. For 30 years, the truck sat largely forgotten and unused. During this long period of abandonment, the historic vehicle that had played such a crucial role in launching Steven Spielberg's career was essentially treated as just another old truck with no particular value. The survival story of the Duel truck involves several different owners before it found its current home. In 2003, a collector named Neil Losasso acquired the truck, recognizing its significance as a piece of cinema history. Just 1 year later, in 2004, Dan Bruno purchased it from Losasso. Finally, in 2009, the truck was acquired by Brad Wyke, the North Carolina trucking company owner and classic vehicle collector who has owned it ever since. Wyke has invested significant time and resources into maintaining the truck and preserving its appearance to match how it looked during filming. He displays the vehicle at his annual Southern Classic Truck Show and other events throughout the Southeast, where it draws crowds of film fans and truck enthusiasts alike. To complete the Duel experience, Wyke also built a replica of the red Plymouth Valiant that Dennis Weaver drove in the film, parking the 2 vehicles together so visitors can see both halves of the iconic chase. The truck's journey from abandoned relic to celebrated piece of film history demonstrates how pop culture artifacts can gain appreciation and value over time.